Portland Thorns versus San Diego Wave FC in this first semifinal. Portland Thorns punching their ticket to the NWSL Championship final defeat. San Diego Wave 2-1 at Providence Park. Scenes, Lisa, absolute scenes in this one. You know, we had a lot of content coming through the pipeline this week in celebration of the semifinals. You know, we had conversations with Morgan Weaver, with players of all the teams leading into this one. But watching this game, I couldn't help but think about that interview that we had with Morgan Weaver, because the confidence and the energy coming out of that interview with that player, it made me feel confident in our pick, Lisa, because I believe, memory serves me correct, we both went with Portland in this one.
Yeah, we both went with Portland getting the win in this match. And I mean, 8th appearance for the Thorns in the playoffs, and they punched their ticket authoritatively into the NWSL Championship with the goals coming. I mean, a good fight from San Diego, right? I mean, we're going to talk about it and we're going to break it all down. I agree. I think that Morgan Weaver, she looked energetic out there. I mean, the entire Portland team looked ready to go, clicking on all cylinders. They had chances, they had opportunities, and you could tell that Providence Park was just rocking. The fans showed up for sure for this match.
I was absolutely just like loving everything coming in on the TV, you know, on the stream, watching it happen. And the build up to that is also, you know, the starting lineups that drop. And I think we should start there. When these 2 11s dropped, again, we were doing the previews. We were curious. We're like, who's going to be lining up for who and where? You know, what's San Diego going to look like, with potential question marks around some of their players? They're the team entering this semifinal on a 120 minutes, right? In a quarterfinal that went in extra time, going up against a Thorns team that hadn't played in about 3 weeks, right? They earned that semifinal bye with their second place finish in the league. So what was that going to look like? So when these 2 lineups dropped, my immediate reaction was like, wow, like Christine Sinclair's on the bench. And you know what? It didn't feel like this Thorns team is just so deep. That was something that we were talking about as well in the preview. I was like, this is really going to be a little bit of a head coaching battle for me personally in the preview, that I was more intrigued in what we were going to see in Wilkinson versus Stoney in this match and compared to certain individual matchups that we might have seen on the pitch. So watching that drop from Wilkinson, I was like, you know what? This seems fine. This seems fine.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't love a Christine Sinclair or a Crystal Dunn coming off the bench and available for you, right? And then the other side of things for San Diego seemed like mostly an ideal lineup for Stoney, but Jakobsen slated to get the start in this one. What were some of your thoughts when these 11s dropped?
Yeah, I mean, Christine Sinclair, of course, circling that name as soon as she wasn't listed in the lineup, especially because after the availability reports came out, there was nothing nefarious or questionable about Sinclair and what her role would be in this game. But it's so true and so telling of the depth of this Portland bench and what they have been able to do. But the first playoff match in Thorns history that Sink has not started. Christine Sinclair has not started. She did get in towards the end of this match. But yeah, I think when you looked at the San Diego starting lineup, you and I talked about the game changers for the Wave team and Casey Stoney's side. And I said that Jakobsen was a game changer coming in off the bench for San Diego against Chicago. Also that Doniak is a game changer off the bench, but we saw Jakobsen in for Kelsey Turnbow. And I honestly was okay with that change because how good of a quarterfinal match Jakobsen had. And that's what Casey Stoney wanted in this match, to be on the front foot, to come out with an attacking prowess. And that was having Jakobsen in the starting lineup. Also for Portland, Yasmin Ryan. We talked about her coming off the bench and being a game changer for Rhian Wilkinson. She ends up getting the start alongside Smith and Weaver. and to see Sauerbrunn, Hubley in the back, and then Garma, of course, holding it down defensively in the center back alongside Real for San Diego Wave. But I mean, I think that was the biggest one, right? Jakobsen coming in and then Sink being on the bench to start this game. But to see how this game unfolded and how it got off to an incredibly quick start. I mean, both of these matches tonight, a quick start, but the opening goal coming from San Diego, it's Taylor Korniak on an assist from Alex Morgan, and it was poor defense from Portland. I'm going to be very blatantly honest, very poor defense from Portland, because Alex Morgan had so much time in the wide areas to pick out who she was going to target inside the box. And of course, you're going to target Taylor Korniak on a cross in from a wide area, and Korniak loses the defender. She had no one around her. So it was a beautiful setup. Now, if you interchange either one of those players, whether it's not Morgan on the flank or not Korniak in the center, I'm not even sure that that's a goal. That's just how beautiful and how perfectly placed it was on both ends of it. And for San Diego to start this match with a bang in the opening 10 minutes to get on the board first, I think it shocked Portland a little bit and it shook them. Now, to be at home, though, they have the boost of Providence Park, of that team, and the response coming in the 20th minute from Rocky Rodriguez. Holy cow. I mean, the header from Korniak was brilliant. I mean, like, picture perfect, right? You could take a photo of that and frame it, but then the goals got better. 3 goals in this match, and they progressively got better, Sandra.
Lisa, look, that when that opening goal happened,
I know,
against Korniak, it took everything in me to refrain from texting you. I said, you know what? I'll just save it for the podcast. I'm going to ask my girl about it when we get here live. But I'm sorry, this opening goal, it took them 10 minutes to break open this goal scoring. And what else was it? Morgan lifting up her head, seeing Korniak in space, and you just see Korniak just sort of drifting, waving, utilizing that position. Didn't even have to utilize any hops on this one. Just needed her 6-1 frame and dink, just with the header, back of the net. Talk to me about the defense on this one, Lisa. I need to hear it from you.
I mean, Sandra, there's nothing really to talk about. There was no defense. Like, they were just non-existent, right? You said it. Taylor Korniak didn't even have to jump. Alex Morgan had so much time to dribble the ball around the flank. No one from Portland closing her down. And that's a player that you cannot give that much time to. That's where it starts. And because Morgan has so much time, she can place Korniak perfectly and give her a perfect ball to her head. And Korniak is just sitting between Sauerbrunn and Hubley in the back line. Neither of them slide to pick her up or challenge. And I mean, defensively, how it should be done is everyone knows that Korniak is the tallest player on the field. Portland doesn't even have anyone to really compete or challenge against that. So on situations like that, Portland needs one defender in front of Korniak, one in behind. That way you sandwich her, you both go up and challenge, bump her off the ball, at least make it difficult, because it was way too easy for the cross to come in and the header. I mean, to talk about the defense is impossible because there was none.
I love it. Period. There was none in this moment. But look, it didn't strike me in this moment when the Wave went up 1-0 under 10 minutes, right? It didn't strike me as a moment of panic for this Portland Thorns team. I think we saw an immediate response out of Portland from this goal. You saw that back line and that defense huddle up immediately. You saw Becky Sauerbrunn getting everybody in a huddle saying, okay, well, let's not do that again, and frankly, it worked. We saw it took around a dozen minutes or so to have this equalizer take place for the Thorns, and my goodness, what an absolute stunner from Rocky Rodriguez. Outrageous volley to just sort of scorch the back of the net for the equalizer here. Fantastic stuff on this goal.
I mean, this goal was so incredibly fantastic. It was a poor giveaway in the midfield. And then as this ball comes down, a corner kick for Portland then as this play developed, and this was a set piece opportunity, and the Korniak goal also coming from a wide area service into the box, and that's what this was for Portland, and San Diego can't clear it cleanly, and actually as it's bouncing towards Rodriguez, her first touch is not as great maybe as she would have wanted, because the ball goes straight up in the air. That is no problem for Rocky Rodriguez though, because this volley that she took was a goal of the weekend for sure, because it was so incredible how, like, I don't even know how she did it. Go to Attacking Third YouTube.
It was,
watch the highlights, because it's fantastic.
It's so funny that you mentioned that first touch too, because it was so good that it looks like just like she planned it. Like that's exactly how she wrote it out and how she planned it. But even in that sense, maybe it should be considered like, you know, one of those sort of top 10 goals, right? On the Sports Center type goals, where it's just to sort of have the presence of mind to be like, well, it's a awkward touch. Let me still make the most of it. And then still doing that. Absolutely brilliant. I think it completely negated that kind of uncharacteristic, sort of early goal that they conceded in this game at home. And it's one of those goals that completely, not only does it like hit the reset button for another team in terms of momentum, it's one of those goals where it's like you really just sort of continue to take control of the game moving forward. I thought the first half was pretty good in terms of the action that we saw, pretty end to end. But by the time halftime rolled around, it was mostly like fairly even in offensive stats in this game. You know, San Diego narrowly kind of winning some of those first half offensive statistics. You had the total shots, 7 for San Diego compared to the 6 by Portland. They had the 4 attempts on target compared to 3 from the Thorns. So it was we're talking like very narrow margins for these two teams as they went level into second half. And for me, it just heightened that like head coaches battle for me even more, because of those narrow margins and because of the even scoreline. I was like, okay, who is going to make the adjustment first, and like who are we going to see it from, and what are we going to see in the picture and during the game. And so watching this game get started in the second half, Lisa, I felt Thorns did a really good job of presenting some pretty good pressure in the early phases of this game. And because of that, I think it sort of forced Casey Stoney's hand a little bit early. Well, not early, but first. We'll just say first. It forced her hand first. So both coaches making some substitutions here around the same time. So you had Mackenzie Doniak coming on in for Jaden Shaw, and then we had Crystal Dunn coming on in for Rocky Rodriguez, about 2 minutes apart, just around the hour mark here. And I think, needless to say, these are two players I think for these teams who have had significant roles for their teams in general. But Doniak has been a player that has really been bringing it on for the San Diego Wave side, particularly during their second half of the season for me. And then you had somebody in Crystal Dunn who's an outstanding soccer player, but she's someone who's been building up her minutes with this Thorns team over the last 4 to 5 appearances or so. Really, we started seeing her get into action around September or so with the Thorns. So I was very curious as to what we were going to see out of this half from these two particular substitutions.
Yeah, I think starting the half, it was definitely even. And that's kind of why we saw these substitutes happening just around the hour mark. As you mentioned, San Diego bringing in Doniak first, and then just a few minutes later, Dunn coming in, because the coaches realized like they needed something to shake it up. And Shaw was the Shaw and Doniak played very differently. Shaw is incredibly technical. She's incredibly young, right? 17 years old for this side. Yeah. She has a nose for the goal, though. She can get into those options. She's quick, and she's got a great touch on the ball. Now, Doniak, much more physical. She's going to go in and body up against a player, receive the ball at her feet, hold it up, allow the play to develop a little bit, drop it back, and then that allows San Diego's midfield to find someone like Morgan. And this match between Portland and San Diego was so physical that bringing in Doniak for Casey Stoney was a fantastic substitute. It just provides that physical presence, especially in the attacking end, that frankly San Diego needed to relieve some of the pressure off Morgan, because Morgan was getting banged around. She was getting stuck in so many tackles and just being attacked from every which way. So to add that physical presence in Doniak, great move by Stoney. And then to take out Rodriguez, the goal scorer, Rhian Wilkinson does that and brings in a Crystal Dunn, almost a like-for-like substitute in that way, in terms of their attacking presence and what they're able to do. Now, Crystal Dunn is much more comfortable on the ball, dribbling at defenders and going forward, whereas Rodriguez is really going to be that link and that connector, taking only 1-2 touches and then getting rid of it. But we saw a shift happen after that 60-minute mark, because Dunn was getting on the ball more, creating a lot of chances. I think that Portland shift, as soon as Dunn came in, Dunn provided so much more in the attacking presence of the field that allowed her to be more attacking minded and less defensive minded in the role that she was in, because she was creating and contributing in those chances. So it gave an offensive spark to Portland in that substitute in the 62nd minute with Dunn.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in agreement with you. And sort of seeing that shift, that counteracting shift, I thought that maybe we would see a couple more substitutions from, by Stoney, and we did, but they were so late in the game. I was very surprised, a little disappointed to not see Amira Ali come into this game a little bit, a little bit earlier. Quite frankly, I don't think that's a player that you keep, for that late. But in the timing in the tempo in which this game was taking place, we saw a little bit of a shift, right? That early kind of phase of pressure in the second half that Portland brought on, that Dunn continued to help facilitate and generate. We saw San Diego try to steal some momentum a little bit, maybe in those closing 10 minutes of regulation, and we started to see and get the feeling, right? At least I did. I said, "Uh-oh, are we going to have, another possibility of extra time? And what is San Diego going to look like if they have to play another playoff game with extra time?" And perhaps that was some of the rationale around having somebody like, an Ali or a Pogarch coming in, late into the game, to perhaps have the legs to chase, in an extra time scenario. But you know what? It just never got there, because chaos o'clock, my favorite time. My favorite time is chaos o'clock. It's 90-minute plus whatever stoppage time. And my goodness, this could not have been any more prophetic, quite frankly. And the game winner going to Crystal Dunn in 90th plus 3 minutes of stoppage time. Outstanding and outrageous scenes. You love to see it.
5 months after giving birth, not only is she back playing professional soccer and with the United States women's national team, but she's checking into a game in the 60th minute, completely changing everything, and then getting the game winner to advance her team into the NWSL Championship. And she does it with such ease. That's like the coolest thing about it. It's effortless. It is from within. It's because Dunn is just so talented that she is able to get this goal and create this opportunity for Portland to advance, because Kaylin Sheridan, goalkeeper for San Diego, was putting up some huge stops, 6 saves throughout this match. And this one was never going to be saved. It was a similar setup to the Rocky Rodriguez goal in the sense that it was a volley, but
yes,
both of them fantastic. Now, Rodriguez's goal, weird first touch, so the ball goes straight up in the air and it becomes a clean volley for Rodriguez. This one, Dunn is able to get a great touch to settle it, and then it's a half volley into the upper 90 corner. I mean, Sheridan didn't have a chance, and you knew as soon as it left her foot, Dunn knew as soon as it left her foot that it was finding the back of the net. Chills. Like, that goal gave me chills. I'm telling you, the goals in this match, from Korniak to Rodriguez to Dunn, they got better as the match went on, and they were playoff goals. They were chaos playoff goals.
Both of these goals by the Portland Thorns also coming off of like fractured or like broken set pieces, like off of these corner kicks, right? That didn't necessarily get cleared away. And that's another like bit of an X factor that a team has, is they're going into a championship final now, like things that you're going to look for to try to have those extra advantages against the opposition. But just unreal of a moment, just and it just is, like I said, it couldn't have been any more couldn't have been written any better, right? Unless it was written by a prophet. And I'm just kind of like thinking back to this. It's just an absolute maddening scenario that you have an athlete that exists on earth right now who just gave birth to a child in May and somehow comes into this moment and provides not just the goal, but the game winner in this one. It's Crystal Dunn. That's Marcel's mama getting the game winner. Outstanding. We love to see it. And, it was a very, very special moment, quite frankly. I just don't know if any of us, covering this or, doing all of the work around it for previewing and talking about it and making picks could have ever made that kind of prediction. So to just sort of see it happening in real time is very, very, very special. And look, a player, an athlete like Crystal Dunn only looks like she's going to be getting stronger as she continues to get more time on the pitch. And it's just, I don't, that type of goal and that type of moment, it's so difficult, I think, if you're the opposition to try to come back from that, even with the extra added stoppage time on top of the stoppage time if you're San Diego Wave.
Oh yeah, there was so much time at the end of this. I think it was 4 minutes added on. Correct me if I'm wrong. But at the end of this, that's when the stoppage time goal was scored by Dunn. It came in the 90th minute +3, and this team continued to play on for like another 2, 3, 4 minutes, and you were expecting the whistle to blow at any point, but it just didn't. And as the full 90 went on, yes, I think it was pretty even overall between these two, but the progression and the pressure from Portland as the match continued got heavier and got stronger. Smith found herself on the ball a lot in this game before she was subbed out, and getting into those half spaces, pulling off Girma along San Diego's back line, picking up the ball. This Portland side looked like they knew what they wanted. They were clicking on all cylinders. They knew how to attack. I think Bella Bigsby had a great game, 3 saves in this match. But I think the biggest one coming at the end of the first half, and to go into the halftime at a 1-1 because of that huge save from Bigsby at the very end of the half. I think that helped Portland with their momentum and their game plan for the second 45 minutes.
Absolutely. Had to be a winner. There had to be a loser. It's the playoffs. That's how things shake out. San Diego's historic season coming to an end in the NWSL semifinal. We bid them farewell from the postseason, making history all along the way. California expansion side, California team making the playoffs for the first time in their inaugural season. So many end of the year award nominations as well. Rookie of the year, MVP, defender of the year, goalkeeper of the year, coach of the year. It goes on and on and on.
I mean, I'm really impressed with the run that San Diego went on this year. I think that it's only right to kind of give them a shout out at the end of this recap, because this is a team that sat at the top of the standings in their very first year for 10 straight weeks in this league. That is incredibly competitive. They made it not only into the playoffs, but they hosted a first round playoff. They made it to the semifinal. In our preview, we talked about how it might have been time for the magic to run out, but the magic was there for the San Diego side all season. The fact that they even made it this far is a huge accomplishment for every single player on that team. But just, I think the lack of depth of San Diego's bench and injuries maybe plaguing them a little bit towards the end of it showed in this match, and the experience of a Portland side with their fan base around them. But it was a fantastic run for San Diego in this inaugural year.
Yeah, it was exciting to cover them through the regular season and also this postseason as well. But meeting their end at Portland, or against Portland in Portland, 2-1 the final scoreline in that one. Portland Thorns were the first to stake their place in the NWSL Championship final.